You were a judge on Food Network's Outrageous Pumpkins. How long have you been pumpkin carving? And when you got into it, was it just another medium you wanted to conquer, or was it something? What was your stance when you got into that?
Well, I love sculpting, which is kind of funny because I fell into it. I was drawing. My mother is a watercolor artist, and I was drawing and drawing and drawing, but I always had to have a model. When I sculpt, I don't really need, I can sculpt from my head, which is one of the things I thought was pretty cool. Now, when I want it to be really super detailed, I'm getting ready to work on something now that I really want to be exquisite. So I'm pulling out all kinds of content to make that I want to see and I want to do. It's all this different kind of, it's a fantasy piece. So I want to grab I'm grabbing from all elements to do it, not to copy, but to create this creature that I have in my head.
Sure.
So I love sculpting. I was reading the newspaper, the daily, I don't remember what it was, but I was looking at the newspaper, and on the cover was a man who had carved some faces by removing the skin of the pumpkin and carving the flesh of it. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, hey, that's kind of a good idea. I've often thought a jack-o'-lantern is a little wasteful. You have a really beautiful thick wall, you know?
Mm-hmm.
If the wall's like this thick and you carve a triangle out of it, it's like, boy, that's a waste. So
yeah, three triangles and call it a day. It's like, come on.
Yeah, like a kid, I was like, But the guy said he used push tools. He said he used these wood carving. You could buy them for $5, and they were like set of 10 push tools. And it was November 1st. I went down to my market and I asked them if I could have some pumpkins, and they go, "Oh, they're free. Take as many as you want." So I took about 6. And this is a keynote. If you're someone who wants to practice pumpkin sculpting, go on November 1st. People don't want their pumpkins anymore. So a lot of times you can get them for free, and sometimes they're like, we have a farm out here that it's they're going to do a half price sale. So, you know, that's better than nothing, but you can go around places. They just want them gone. So they'll charge you $5, $1 for something that was $40, $50 or even more.
Right.
So I found these pumpkins. I bought this tool set and I did 2 swipes on it and cut myself. And I said, this sucks.
Yeah.
There's got to be a better way. So I pulled out my sculpting tools, my Rennie Ribbon sculpting tools, pull tools, and I started carving the pumpkin. And I started doing it with these pull tools. So I said, oh my gosh, this is so much easier. And oh my goodness, you know. And then I started to realize that not all pumpkins are created equally. Some have very, very thin walls. Some have very, very thick walls. And there's a variety, unfortunately, that happens in a market that can sometimes have a thread in it, like celery. If you catch that, the thing rips in half. So the one thing I really don't want to have a beginner do is to get that kind of a pumpkin, because it's going to be devastating to them if the thing all of a sudden falls apart. You know how it is when you're beginning something. You always blame yourself. And I didn't want people to do that.
Is that like getting one from like Walmart versus getting one from like a farmer's market? Like, is it the care that's put into it, or is it just random?
It's part of the care that's been into it. And then there's all these different varieties of pumpkins. Who knew? Okay.
Right.
I knew there were little pumpkins called pie pumpkins and bigger pumpkins called jack-o'-lanterns. I had no idea there were white pumpkins called the polar bear or the ghost, that underneath, if you get a white pumpkin and you scrape the flesh off it, you might get white flesh, like in a cassava, or you might get peach flesh. And the peach flesh is so pretty. And then you light these from behind. They're just amazing. They're amazing. And so I started to sculpt this flesh and put a light behind it. And I realized that this was something that is so much fun that I just couldn't stop. I thought, you know, and at the time, I think you think to yourself, you're the only person that's doing this. Well, I knew the guy from the paper had been doing it, but I didn't know if he knew, you know, that the scraping tools were good. So I'll show you if it will be kind to me. I'll just show you my lady.
Okay.
You know, it's so funny when I do these, because sometimes I was just speaking with you earlier and saying, man, you're really good at what you do. And it's good to touch with the young because they know what they're doing, whereas me. But anyway, here's my lady. So she
Oh,
was
wow.
sculpted with a scrape tool, and she's very pretty. She's about the size of a regular jack-o'-lantern, about 6 inches tall, 5
Mhm.
inches across. But what really makes them spectacular is when they're lit. So when they're lit, they just take on a whole new, beautiful lantern look to them. And it's just a spectacular way to illustrate your sculpting. So I just was like, ah! You know,
So,
and
so
the bigger
Terry,
the pumpkin, the better.
do you have it lit while in certain processes while you're sculpting, or do you
You
light it at the
can.
very end to display? Okay.
You can. I like the surprise, but
Yeah.
you can put a light in there and sculpt to the light. Many of my students will do that. I'll say sculpt to the light, not go to it, but sculpt to it. So that way they understand hot versus cold. Because if we look at this young lady again, the thicker areas are going to be your darker areas, and the super hot areas are like her tear ducts and the yellows. All the yellows are the hot. That's punched through or nearly through. And then so now you're beginning to play with, what do you like dark? What do you like light? You like the roses, the peaches, the different colors. You start to really play in it like that. And it's just wonderful.
Did it take you a while to get the symmetry down for that? Because pumpkin is a very interesting medium. Or were you just kind of, the more pumpkins you
I
carve,
think I took it, I looked at it and said, does it really need to be symmetrical? You know, you ask yourself, does it really need to be symmetrical, or can it be weird? Because when you teach people, you don't want them to get in the magma of their mind of it's got to be symmetrical. Nature
Right,
is
it has
not
to be perfect.
symmetrical, by
Right.
the way. You don't want to make it perfect. Like, for one thing, I tell people that you love teeth. Like, I love to sculpt teeth. So this is my cheeky, and he's all teeth. He's 3 feet across and nothing but teeth. Okay, so you say, so if you love teeth, then you can say to yourself, this one's fun because it's nothing but teeth. Or everyone loves my weird pumpkin, because who says it has to be a face? So there's my weird pumpkin. You know, this was to tell people to go to my front door, because for some reason they kept skipping my front door. So the arm is made out of a squash, and the pumpkin is just the little pumpkin that I opened up and stuck that in a hole, and then it points. So the point is that now that you have this dimensional ability, it frees you to do whatever you want on a pumpkin. It doesn't have to be. So I'll show you a perfect example of it doesn't have to be symmetrical. Would be my dragon's egg. So this looked like a dragon's egg, but you see it's not symmetrical. I just made this little dragon in a fetal position, and then I lit him. And it's just, people go, whoa. And you will, even if you take a class and you do this, you may look at your pumpkin and go, ugh, it's really awful. And then you'll light it and you go, because the surprise factor is amazing, how much light just changes the whole mood of it. So that's how I got involved in it, and I was all about lighting them. Then I meet and judge Ray Villafane, who's the Pumpkin King. You've probably seen a lot of Ray Villafane pumpkins. They're just stunning. But he doesn't really like his. He likes his to be lit on the outside, and he really works with the detail on the outside, which is fabulous. But and I would look at his stuff and I'd go, wow, that's fantastic. And just watch that kind of, and I've done that style too. I love it. I live it. But that's what makes us complement each other so well, is that I tend to like mine lit, and you want to be aware of the thickness of the walls. And he's about be aware of the thickness of the walls to create the planes of the face or whatever he's doing. He'll pull things in like pumpkin seeds to make teeth, or add, you can add things like other vegetables and stuff. It's just a really, really fun thing to do. And then you've got people like Mark, who has an Instagram page called Mark Maniac, where he does he sketches on them these elaborately beautiful illustrations, and it looks like stained glass almost. It's so nice. So it's really great to look at these different artists and say, wow, this is a lot different than 3 triangles, Wow.
Yeah, I love that. I have a photo here that relates to pumpkin sculpting. Can you talk a little bit about that? So I created
this video. Yeah, I created this video so people could learn how to do it, because so many, I couldn't reach out at the time. I wasn't, you know, you say to yourself, you can only reach so far. And this was back in a day when we didn't have the internet and social media. Social media has really brought us all together. Thank God, before the pandemic happened after this, or what would we do? You know?
So it's been a real treat being able to connect with people, especially in this time. That's why I love doing these interviews, and especially you know, one of the few good things to come from the pandemic is the surge of creativity. Now that everyone's kind of locked up in their homes, they're trying new things, getting out, whether it's, you know, planting a garden or getting out, trying different skills and getting a new skill set and trying new hobbies.